be the person you needed when you needed somebody most. You have to be that person every day for yourself when you're starting out on this journey of healing. It will be hard, but it won't be any harder than staying stuck as a prisoner of your own thoughts. You have to find ways to feel safe within your own life so that that little child within you trusts you enough to start coming out of their shell or of their hiding places or of their prison selves in their minds. They want you to lead the way.
Sharon Fitzmaurice isn't just a holistic wellness coach, she's a catalyst for healing and transformation.
With over 16 years of experience, Sharon empowers others using tools she discovered during her own journey of overcoming childhood trauma, severe anxiety, and depression.
As the author of 3 books, including her own inspiring life story, she continues to guide others toward acceptance, healing, and personal growth.
So Sharon, over the years, you've helped me look at my shadow, the parts of myself that I felt shame about, the messy parts of myself, helped me work through them to get me to where I am today. How important is it to actually give yourself time to listen and just sit with your younger self or the thoughts of the past?
Good question.
So Sharon, let me start with this. Over the years, you've helped me look at my shadow, the parts of myself that I felt shame, I've felt vulnerable about, the messy parts of myself, and helped me work through them to get me to where I am today. What is it about yourself that you saw them parts in yourself? And what was the turning point in your life? Where did it all start for you?
Good question. I suppose I didn't see it until I wasn't able to hide from it anymore, if that makes sense. So when we are stuck in a pattern of behavior or beliefs about ourselves, we continue in those patterns and we continue in those behaviors until we realize that they're not helping us any longer, they're not serving us any longer, and we may avoid them at many times in our lives because, as you said, we don't want to see that shadow side, the darkness within us, because there's a lot of shame and guilt and all of the other emotions that go with it. But after a while, we just can't hide from them any longer. So, through my own background, I had hid for many years many of the emotions and many of the feelings and thoughts that were going through my own mind without sharing them with anybody else because I believed nobody else would understand. Nobody identified the same as me. But that was untrue. That's because I had never spoke them out. So my, I suppose, darkest night of the soul was in 1994 when I could no longer handle hiding what I was holding in my mind and in my heart and in my body and in my soul any longer. And I wanted the pain to stop. And it was the turning point for me in my life, but not a very nice experience, as you know, Ryan, when you are trying to hide everything from everybody else but you're not hiding it from yourself. So you're walking around with conversations going on in your own mind that are actually destroying you. So for me, it was to actually stop listening to those conversations and find a place out in the world where I could have them in a safe space. And that's where my journey started into really looking deeper within myself and finding out what was my truth from that moment on, not the truths of what my past were because they were no longer serving me.
So what was the story that you were telling yourself at that time, the pain that you were carrying?
So, going back a little bit into my story, I was a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and it was something that nobody spoke about in Ireland at the time. It was something that I wasn't quite aware of, what it actually the term was. I didn't know what that meant to be sexually abused or to be a victim of childhood sexual abuse. There was no buses going around with, Galway Rape Crisis Centre or Samaritans or anything like that, especially in country areas. And there was no adverts on television. We didn't have social media. We didn't even have a phone in the house. So who do you tell? And how do you explain as a child what you are experiencing? No child has the words to say, I am being sexually abused. The words that we may say as a child is hurt, or I'm scared. I'm really afraid of what's coming next. But we don't have the words. We just say somebody is hurting me. But what does that mean to an adult or another person if you say that to them? So again, there was a part of me as a child that believed it was my fault. And that is where the shame comes in, and that's where the guilt comes in. And if that I told anybody that they might put me away because that's what I was told by my abuser, if I ever utter a word to anybody, I would be locked away. And as a child, I absolutely believed that. So then bring me on to my teenage years where I was rebelling and, was becoming my own person, still trying to fight back from the fear of that, childhood abuse. But I still didn't have a voice because I didn't understand why nobody was talking about what they were going through. So I had nobody to mirror. I had nobody to say, that's happening to me too. So of course I kept it hidden inside, and it brought on huge anxiety and eventually led me to a quite depressive state in my own life in my early 20s, which then, again, making very long story short, into relationships that weren't healthy because I knew nothing else, because I went into relationships believing that I wasn't worthy of love and I wasn't deserving of trust and that I didn't need to be respected. They were all learned behaviors from my childhood experiences. And as again, as I said, when it was that dark night when I wanted to end the pain, I had to wake up and realize that I had to choose how I wanted to live my life. And that was the hardest step, Ryan, was choosing the life I now wanted, because now I had to really look within and say, well, what kind of a life do you want to live and who do you want to be in that life? So that took me on the most amazing journey, but also a journey of awareness where I had to look at parts of myself that I didn't really like anymore. And that is a huge thing to admit.
So you said about making a choice. You had to make a choice. Before you made that choice, what was it? uh, like, what kept you to that time to make that choice, or what was the turning point to make you realize that I need to make a choice?
I couldn't deal with the pain I was holding on to any longer. And this is something that I speak about quite a lot, that we may feel like we are in mental and emotional turmoil. But when we're going through that mental and emotional turmoil, and especially for years, or as long back as I could remember, up until the age of 24, I was in turmoil. I was in pain. Of course, I didn't understand all the terminology, and that my cells were holding on to trauma, all of those things I learned through later on through my own journey. And I was physically being affected by it. It was physically exhausting. My body was starting to fail me because it couldn't carry the weight of those thoughts and emotions any longer. So physically, my body started to break down. Physically, I was in pain. And it was trying to show me my body is so amazing. Our bodies are so amazing. They start to show us signals along the way that this is too much for you to carry. But again, we may not have the awareness that the body is responding to our thoughts and emotions. But my body was telling me, we cannot carry on any longer like this. This is not healthy. So my body started failing me and I was exhausted. And then I didn't have the physical strength any longer to pretend or to wear that mask that everything was okay with Sharon. It was now starting to fall apart, and that little girl inside of me was screaming to be heard.
And how did you give that little girl a voice?
I stopped pretending. I just fell apart, and I said it in my book. It's like I broke into a million pieces. And then I had to choose. There's your choice again. I had to choose every single day after that of what pieces I wanted to keep and what pieces I no longer, or that no longer fitted into my life of who I was choosing to be. So it's again like a jigsaw, and it's your design, you're creating the picture of the life you want now, not the life that everybody told you you had to live. Now I was creating this own vision, my own vision of my life. But there was parts of that jigsaw I had no clue what it was going to look like, Ryan. So it was basically starting with piece by piece by piece and putting myself back together again very, very slowly. And my mantra was, it's one step at a time, Sharon. It's just one step at a time. Today, if you can shower and get dressed and eat, you are doing brilliantly. And that's as simple and as basic as it could be for me at the time, while still trying to have the strength to say, do I want to stay in this world? And my answer was always yes. So if my answer was yes, then I had to back it up with another reason to live each day. And it was extremely hard, but it got me to where I am today, thankfully.
um, you said something else. You said the word victim. So, was there a point that that changed, or, or like around that word, or can you tell me a bit about that?
Hmm. Well, a victim for me is when you are powerless, when you have no choice in what is happening to you. So I was a victim for a number of years, probably up until the age of 24. Really was a victim because as a child, I couldn't take responsibility. I didn't have the power to, stop what was happening to me. As a teenager, I was trying to, but I still didn't have the power to be independent and be on my own and live life through my choices. But when I got to that age of 24, I realized that I had to take responsibility of my life. It was my choice now, and that there was nobody actually, had me caged anywhere. There was nobody physically abusing me mentally and emotionally. I was doing that to myself. So I had to say to myself, do you want to stay being the victim of something that happened to you and still giving power to that person? And my answer was no. So again, I always came back to the choices that I had each day and each moment. And those were always very simple questions. What is my choice today? Do I stay, blaming everybody else for the state of my life now as a 24-year-old, or do I choose to take responsibility? So once I started taking responsibility for my life, I started thriving. And it took me a long time to be able to say I was thriving because I was stuck in survival mode. Because when you are trying to come out of something that you have been a prisoner for in your life, in your mind for so long, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not just waking up and going, yes, here I am, I'm alive, and the rest of my life is going to be amazing. I had no idea, Ryan, what was my life was going to be like. I just had to choose to take each step at a time, take responsibility for my life, and put as much energy into that moment, into that day, into who I wanted to be. And even at that stage, I wasn't quite sure. But everything that I did led me to the next part, and I really started thriving. And it's to me, I'm still thriving and I'm still learning, Ryan.
So, what did the first few months of that change of the making a choice to thrive look like?
It looked like shit on a stick, basically. Because, and that's exactly, people look at anybody now that is, out there, I suppose, and written books and are on social media or are doing anything, and they think, sure, look it, they must have always had it easy. But I am very honest and open about where I came from and what I went through. And each of those days was really hard because, again, in my head, you would normally or naturally go back to being the victim and going, oh, but this happened to me, so how am I supposed to get on in life? And this is always going to be my story, and, poor me. It's a natural thing for us to go back into that mode. So I had to constantly, and that's where the battle was then. It was like going, you're not there any longer, Sharon. You're here. So I was having conversations with myself. And you asked a really important question, is like, how did I listen to that little child inside of me that was screaming, for help? Every day I had to sit, and this is where I started being mindful and I started meditating. I started sitting, just sitting and closing my eyes and just listening and asking myself first, the adult, the 24-year-old me, what she needed to get through that day. And sometimes it was just food. Sometimes it was a rest. Sometimes it was a walk out in nature. Sometimes it was to read a book. But other times it was to sit and actually give a voice to the little girl inside of me and what she wanted. And I was amazed when I started listening to her because she just needed to feel safe. And who was going to help her feel safe? I was. So that was a huge, profound lesson for me. The only person that can make that little child within each of us safe is now the adult, safe, adult person. So you have to find ways to feel safe within your own life so that that little child within you trusts you enough to start coming out of their shell or of their hiding places or of their prison selves in their minds. They want you to lead the way. So it's like you're reparenting yourself in a way and giving yourself what your child self needed. And you've probably seen those memes, on social media. Be the person you needed when you needed somebody most. You have to be that person every day for yourself when you're starting out on this journey of healing. And I promise you, it will be hard, but it won't be any harder than staying stuck as a prisoner of your own thoughts. I promise you.
Just on that point, there's 2 points I want to discuss. Number one is being a prisoner of your own thoughts, and the second one is how important is it to actually give yourself time to listen and just sit with your younger self or the thoughts of the past? Is that something we do enough in general, or
Definitely not, no. So again, the stories that we listen to are the bad stories, when we're not aware of them. But when we actually take time to sit and listen, and again, it's the awareness, that's where the awareness comes in, and we're not taught about awareness or self-reflection or self-love or self-care, when we weren't. This is now becoming more and more and more to develop a relationship with ourselves. And once you have a good relationship with yourself, every other relationship is a little bit better than the relationships you used to have when you were not consciously aware of your behaviors or all of those things. So for me, sitting down every single day to listen was, again, it wasn't something that I had learned from anybody. I went and did that later when I realized that it really benefits me and I knew it could benefit other people. But to sit and listen, it's like if you sit with a friend, Ryan, and they're going through a bad time, you give them the space, you sit and you listen, and you hold that space for them, don't you? Why can we not do that for ourselves? So for me, it's about being your own best friend, or in the case of your inner child, be there, be the safe adult, the listening adult for that child's self that really needs your love and attention and care. But most of all, they need your compassion. They need not to be judged for whatever they're feeling or thinking. And that's where, when I talk about the prisoner of your mind, I had myself locked away in my mind. I was the one holding the key, and I wasn't allowing myself the freedom to let all of that pain out. I was holding on to it because I didn't know any better at the time. So that's why I say to people, don't feel bad if you're going, well, I'm going through all of that, you know, I couldn't tell anybody, or how could I share that about myself? Because again, we go back to the shame and the guilt, but you're the one that's giving the energy and the power to the past. Nobody else is doing it. So again, there's an old Native American story. There's two wolves, and one is really angry and the other one is really kind. And which one do you keep feeding? And that's the same for our thoughts. What are we nurturing within our mind and our heart? Are we giving it to something that is serving us and giving us a feeling of being good enough, being worthy enough? Or are we continuing to feed ourselves that we're worthless, that we have to hide from what happened to us? I don't want to be a prisoner of my life anymore. I want to be the person that says, here I am, this is who I am, this is all the shit that happened to me, but now it has no power over me. So you can't say anything to anymore that's going to hurt me because I've done that to myself over a lifetime. And after that, I just decided I am going to put myself out there and to say, here I am, I've showed up, I'm showing up for me. And if I can show up for me every day, that's a really good start to every day.
It can be hard though. It can
Yes.
be difficult
Mm,
to give yourself, I suppose, to sit with yourself first of all. For me, that's something that I'm learning every day, constantly. I know, like sitting with my thoughts and listening to them voices, them negative voices. That's a constant battle that I'm always working with, and I know a lot of people are too. But how do we start? Like, how do we start? I suppose speaking more loving of ourselves and overcoming them thoughts.
mm. So I just shared a reel today that I had done at a talk years ago, and somebody said, how do I start meditating, Sharon? And again, when we say the word meditation, people go, oh, sitting there cross-legged going, and it's not, it's not. There are many forms of meditation, but the meditation, and I keep everything very simple in my practice always, and even in my groups and retreats, everything. So I always say we start with our breath, and our breath is the anchor into the body and into this moment. So we're all breathing anyway, aren't we, Ryan? Every single day we're breathing. The only time we notice our breath is when we're short of breath or we've done a workout or we've gone up a hill and we're like, Jesus, and we're really focusing on our breath. But if you just sit, and anybody that's listening to this, and you including Ryan, you're just sitting while you're listening to me, and I want you just to become aware of your breath. Without changing it, you're just focusing on the breath, flowing gently and naturally in and out of your body. And you're just starting to be aware of it. And it's just that silent connection. Oh, yes, that's what my breath feels like. Oh, I'm aware of my breath now flowing in and out. And the more that I focus on it, our mind actually drops down into our body, our awareness. So we're not going around in our head thinking and processing. We're just naturally allowing. It's like bringing your head into your heart. You've heard that saying. So you're bringing your awareness down into your body and you're watching the breath, just naturally, gently moving in and out of the body. And then you notice your body. You start to feel the rise and fall of your tummy or of your chest as the breath moves in. And as it moves out, you sometimes start to feel your shoulders dropping down or relaxing just a little bit. Yeah. So imagine every day that you took a minute, 2 minutes, I don't care, 30 seconds, whatever feels right for you. And you just stop and you notice your breath. You don't even have to close your eyes. You could be sitting in traffic, the red light is there. Instead of giving out about it and looking at your watch and thinking about where you have to go and all the things you've got to do, take 30 seconds to check in with you. Use that time to just become aware of your breath, follow the breath in and out of the body, be aware of the tension in your body, and as you breathe out, just try and let go of some of that tension. And then that check in with yourself. How am I actually feeling right now? because we sometimes wait until the end of the day or we're going to bed and we realized, oh my God, I've had such a stressful day. Jesus, they were driving me mad. I have so much work to do tomorrow. And again, we're caught up in this cycle or this pattern of unhealthy thoughts. And that is keeping our body in this fight or flight mode. And the stress is thriving inside of you, but you're not, because you're not getting any time to relax the nervous system, to give those thoughts a rest, give them 30 seconds off. Do that a few times through the day. Your breath, your body, and your emotion. And as you start getting used to doing that, then you start to notice, God, I've checked in with myself a few times this week, and the emotions that present is anger or sadness or resentment or guilt or shame, whatever it is. And then you become more aware of, God, why am I feeling all of these things? Because usually it is the negative emotions that we connect in with, because they seem to be bigger and they seem to overwhelm us until we recognize joy and happiness and peace and calm. And then we start connecting in with them more. And if we can have a balance throughout the day of what we consider negative and what we consider positive. But once we have that awareness into what emotion I'm feeling, again, it's a simple process of just breathing into that emotion, just like a little child, giving it the time, love, and attention it needs, even for a few seconds. You'll start to feel it release. You mightn't solve the big problems that are going on in your mind or in your life, but at least you're starting to become more aware that you are the creator of how this energy is going to be formed into your life. Do you allow the anger and sadness to completely take over everything else in your life? Or do you start to say, yes, I'm sad right now about this, but I'm actually very happy also because this is going right in my life? Or I'm really angry about the past, but I'm very grateful for what I have right now and the people that are in my life. Find a balance within your mind that you can say every day, yes, this is shitty what's going on, but there's also good things going on too. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just thinking about, while you're sharing all of this, of how people may be listening to this right now, but taking that first step, it's always the hardest to make them change and to implement these little habits into their life. And yeah, they might do it and then they'll fall off again, like myself in the past. But there's always a lot of fear to bringing the change in, whatever that change is, because they're so, I suppose, the fear of change of like who will I become, what will life be. But ultimately the goal is to bring in change for good. But I have these conversations with multiple people over the last few weeks even, and I do share advice, but I don't think it's taken. Not that they need to take it, but it's like they're afraid of that change, of like maybe it's the people that they're hanging around with, and they're so accustomed to what they have and who's around them. But how can they bring in the belief of like, what, I need to make this change. I need to make this change for my well-being, and not fear what's ahead.
And again, and I love that you were saying, people ask you for advice and you're there to try and support them. And some people don't ask for advice and they don't ask for, they might say, Jesus, everything is going wrong for me. And you might tune into them and go, well, you know what? Would you try this or would you try that? And they might turn around and say, I didn't ask for your advice, Ryan or Sharon. I'm just trying to tell you what's going wrong for me. And again, they just need space for somebody to listen with compassion and without judgment. So we're all guilty of that in our personal lives. A friend or a family member is telling you something, you're trying to fix it for them because it makes us feel uncomfortable when somebody is going through something and we feel helpless. But again, sometimes it's just to listen. So that would be my first point of support for somebody in your life. Don't try to fix it for them. Just be there to listen and say, I'm here for you if you need me. So when they are ready to ask for your support or advice, they will ask you. So then they do ask for your advice, and you say, well, have you tried, chatting to somebody, that could professionally help you? And they might say, oh, Jesus, no, I'm not ready for that yet. God, that's too much now. There's an awful lot of shite there now, and that'll be too much to unload. I'm not ready to face all of that. And again, it's the facing of it. So for me, there are two really main emotions, fear and love. So again, when you were talking about choices earlier, and I always say, do I base my choices and decisions on fear or love? And I base them on love now. Before it was on fear. So again, even just starting from that point for anybody and say, am I making the decision not to get any support or start to change things within my life? Am I making that choice through fear and love? And mostly they will say fear because they're afraid of what they have to unpack, how people may judge them, and what it's going to look like down the road. And most of the time, our fear is not of change, it's fear of the unknown. But can I tell you something? None of us have a fucking clue what's going to happen ever. So you could have everything planned in your life to a T, but tomorrow morning you could wake up dead. And people laugh at me when I say that because today is all we have. That's all we have. We have nothing else. We only have today. I don't live back in the past any longer. I'm not back there any longer, so why would I give it any time and energy? The only moment I have, and I can tell you as I'm sitting here with Ryan, this is the only thing that's important because that's how focused I am every single day. When I'm with a client or I'm with my family or I'm out in the garden with my dog or I'm staring at a bird or a tree, that's all that matters in that moment. How many people in our world, in our circles, and you will see them in the most beautiful setting, the most beautiful houses, the most beautiful cars, the beautiful clothes, and their mind is frazzled. They are not present in their own life. Do you agree?
100%. Yep.
Yes. So for me, I am only present here today. So everything I can do today is the best I can do for me in my life. And through the choices, and again, I go back to choices, everybody, through the choices I make today, I'm creating my tomorrow. So then we go back to, are the choices I am making for myself healthy? And are they going to look better for me tomorrow or the next day? Or are they going to look unhealthy? So whatever I'm doing today, I have to do for myself out of love because the fear is always going to feed you more fear. And if you just answer one question in your head, do I want to feel like this for the rest of my life? And your answer would be definitely not. But maybe you're not sure how you want to feel. And that's when you start just simply listening and asking yourself, what is it you need? And most of the time, it will be to love myself, or to be loved, or to be seen, or to be heard, or to be accepted, or to feel like I matter. And the first person that can do that for you is yourself. You take a step towards accepting who you are, no matter what has happened in your past, to who you are today, and saying, I survived all of that. But do I want to stay in survival mode for the rest of my life? Or do I want to become the hero of my own story and change the next chapter? And that's, again, asking simple questions and seeing what your answers are. And if you can't find an answer, then reach out and get support. Find somebody that is going to be able to help you take that next step, like Ryan.
But what about the people who don't have a choice? the people who say, I don't have a choice,
There's no such thing.
I hear that.
There's no such thing. Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp in Germany, and one of his most famous quotes was, "They can," and I can't say it, I'm just thinking out
I
loud what
know the
it meant
book.
to me at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, they could keep him prisoner in the concentration camp, but they couldn't keep his mind a prisoner, and that his thoughts were his own, and that he could think of his wife, he could think of his homeland, he could think of everything else, and they couldn't rob that from him. They couldn't stop him from thinking of everything that he wanted to think of, and that kept him alive. That gave him hope, even though everything seemed hopeless for him at the time. He still chose to focus on hope. So if somebody like Viktor Frankl could do that, why can't the rest of us?
Yeah. That's a very good book. Is it Man's Meaning for
Meaning,
Life?
that's
Or
right. Yes,
yeah,
yes, that's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But even one of the stories goes that people in the camp, they had set a date of when they would be free. So it might have been November or whatever, and they said they're going to be free in March. And the choice that they made is they were going to be free no matter what.
Yeah.
But come March, they were not freed. But what had happened is because they had set their minds on leaving, they ended up dying.
Mm,
You know. But I
yeah.
think what I took from that book is like whatever you set your mind to, you can achieve it. And
Yeah.
he was able to come through that camp for, I don't know how many years he was on it, but um feeling free, even though being
Yeah.
a prisoner. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a good book. But
Yeah.
I so that's something that comes across is I don't have a choice, but I know deep down they know they have a choice. They just are afraid. There's
And
a lot
it's
of
okay.
fear.
And that's okay, because if you don't know any other way of thinking and feeling,
Mm,
if you're used to doing that all of your life, absolutely, I've been there myself. But again, it's taking responsibility. Who am I giving power over my life to? So go back to Viktor Frankl. Yes, they had power, what he controlled, how he slept, what he drank, if he was going to live or die, but they didn't have any control over his own thoughts. And many people say, well, I can't help, what I'm thinking. These intrusive thoughts are here. But again, are you attaching yourself to them constantly? It's like I always used to see myself sitting at a train station and I was watching the trains go by. And I used to think about where actually do I want to go? So it's like every thought was a train. So do I hop on every train and it brings me to somewhere I don't want to go? Or do I actually sit and wait for as long as it takes until I know and choose this is the right train to go on? So again, what thoughts are going to benefit me and what thoughts aren't? Now we have thousands upon thousands of thoughts going through our mind. And when you're a mindful practitioner like me, I play this game with myself when I'm really busy and I'm going about my business. And I'll stop for a moment and go, what are you thinking right now? And they are the most absurd thoughts. They have nothing to do with right now. They could be something that I heard on a radio show that has no meaning in my life, but subliminally we're taking in messages constantly. So if I'm thinking, if all of those inadequate thoughts are there, my mind is still filled with loads of information that's not important to me. But imagine if I attach myself to every single one of them. That's like a web of information that is not feeding me in my life. So I have to focus on the thoughts that are relevant to my life in this moment and how I want to work with them. Okay, so just make it as simple as that. So imagine if you were in a crowded street and you were trying to listen to every single person's conversation at the same time. That's impossible, isn't it? Why is that not impossible in our minds? We're trying to listen to every single conversation we've ever had that had an impact on us, what I should have said, what I should have done, what I'm going to do next week. You're not there. You're not back here. You're here. What is the conversation you want to have with yourself now in this moment today? Is that conversation healthy? Is it adding value to your life? Is it helping you to be fit and strong within your mind and body? Do you feel good about the conversations you have with yourself? If you don't, again, the choice, and you'll be sick of me saying that word after a while, but the choice is, well, what kind of conversation would I really like to have with myself? How would I want to start that conversation? And what would I like the other part of me to say back to me? Again, keep it simple.
Well, just on that point, then, when you made that choice and you started to do the work on yourself, how, or like, what did that journey look like? You know, the years after, and what were the
Yeah.
stories or the conversations, the thoughts that you were having with yourself?
Oh, so many conversations, but they were very simplified because again, remember um I was going through it, the trauma that had experienced as a child and young teenager. I was still living in a trauma affected body, and my body responded in fear to movement, to noise, to things that were happening that, out of my control. It could be a car banging on the street or a door banging in the house I was living in. You know, my body was responding to all of the things that I had gathered fear for in my body as a child and young adult or young teenager. So I had to learn that even when I felt it, instead of going back into those racing thoughts and my body just in crisis mode, I had to again connect with the breath, connect with the body, and I had to tell it almost, I almost had to hold my body and say, it's safe, nothing is going to harm you right now. And that was going on for a long time. And sometimes there's still moments, Ryan, where my body responds to that. So I am years, and I'll always be years, trying to help my body feel safe. So it's not an overnight fix. You're not going to feel completely safe in your life always, because there are remnants of it and still parts that I'm looking deeper within myself that are maybe not even from this lifetime that I have to heal. But focusing on this life, I first had to start connecting in with who I was in that moment, how I felt, and listening to what it needed. And as the journey started progressing and I started becoming more mindful, I was sitting, meditating for longer. Then I realized that my body actually needed healing. So that's where I discovered energy work. And I discovered that the energy within my body was blocked in this trauma response because of my thoughts and emotions and my experiences. So the energy work helped me to relieve some of that trauma and for my body to start feeling safe. And from there, then, of course, I wanted to find out more about why my mind was holding onto so much of this and the way it experienced things. So I went on to study lots of different things in my life. And I decided everything for me is going to help me, not knowing that it was going to become my practice or who I was as a professional, because everything for me was very personal at the time. But that journey, it is hard. But you know what was harder? Was staying stuck as the victim. I wouldn't be here today, Ryan, if I had stayed being the victim, if I
Yeah,
allowed my past to control my future. I wouldn't be here right now. And I can guarantee that.
yeah, that's something I agree with. Is it's actually harder to stay the same,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
try it's a difficult one to, you have to go through that to understand that, you
Mm.
know.
But again, if you just ask yourself, anybody that's listening right now, and you just ask yourself the same, am I happy with my life? Am I happy with it? And if you're not, well, there's elements of it you're not happy with, but it's not all of it. So it's knowing what parts of my life am I not happy with? Is it my career? Is it my job? Is it my relationship? Is it my fitness? Is it my habits? Is it the way I react? Is it the way I respond? Is it my family? There is a list of things that you can ask. What are you not happy with? And then the second question you'll say, can you change any of it? And you can change your job, you can change your career, you can change your relationship, you can change, maybe you can't change your family, but you can change your reaction to your family. You can change the way you react to them because we can only change ourselves and our reactions and response. We can't, remember, change, control, or fix anybody else. We can only do that for ourselves. Okay, so you come back and just ask yourself, what am I not happy with? What is causing me so much sadness or unhappiness in my life? And if you even get one little idea of what that is, well, how can I find ways to change how I look at it? Because sometimes we're looking at it from a perspective of, I have no power. How can I change it? I'm financially stuck. What am I going to do if I leave this job? Or what am I going to do if I leave this relationship? Well, what will you do if you stay stuck in it? Do you remain unhappy for the rest of your life? You always have a choice. You either look at it differently or you change what's making you unhappy. You still have choices. And that's not saying if you don't make that choice today that there's something wrong with you. But sometimes if you're willing to create a choice, things start to shift for you. You are the one that has to be willing to make the change. And once you're aware of that, things start happening. You make the choice to be willing to change and to create the choices in your life. And it's amazing what can happen for you.
So whenever you made that change, obviously I see where you are today, and
Sitting on my
things have
chair here talking to Ryan.
but like you have unfolded into this very, I would say, very powerful human. Um did you realize that was going to come, or when did you realize, starting to understand your own ability and your potential? How did that come?
Well, I'm smiling, because again, from your perspective, you're saying I'm a very powerful human. I don't feel like I'm any more powerful than anybody else. I feel I'm very powerful in my belief in who I am today. I'm very powerful in my belief in how I help people. I'm very powerful in my belief about what I want in my life. And what I don't want in my life. Because sometimes we know what we don't want, but we're not sure what we do want. But I'm sure what I do want in my life. Um, I did not know Ryan. Absolutely not. So if I look back, and I'm always saying this every time I'm asked it, if I look back to Sharon, the little girl, and Sharon, the teenager, and even the young adolescents that wanted the pain to stop, they are my heroes because the little girl had the courage to stay alive, to continue to live through the trauma. The teenager, even though she had no power to control her life at that stage, she kept vowing that she was going to get stronger. And for the 24-year-old, even though she broke apart and fell into a million different pieces, she started to have the courage to put those pieces back in the way that she wanted to create her life, not knowing, remember, not knowing what that life was going to look like, not knowing if she could add any value to her own life, don't mind anybody else's life, but just that she wanted to live. And that was the start of it. And from there, as I said, every experience that I had after that was to help myself to, first of all, start accepting and loving myself more. And then, secondly, to let other people love the person that I had not known that I was now creating, and to stand in the world and to be able to say, this is me, flawed, not perfect, but I'm okay with me. So if you're not, that's okay. But the people that wanted me in their lives were the people that was most important. I didn't focus on the people that didn't want me in their lives. That's not going to matter to me. So yeah, everything started developing very naturally and again energetically, and people have vision boards and they write things. I never did that. What I always used to say is I used to wake up in the morning and be grateful that I was alive. And I would start off with that because remember, I didn't want to be here. So being alive now, even though it was scary and I didn't know my future, I was grateful that I was breathing, I was walking, I was talking, and I was living. And I said, this is going to be a great day. Not knowing what that day was going to bring. But ever since that, my life has just, it has brought the most amazing opportunities and people and love and joy into my life every single day, not without challenges. You know, there has been many challenges, but now I can face those challenges knowing that I will survive them. And I'm not going to stay stuck as a victim just because of those challenges. In fact, they've actually made me stronger in the belief that we can move through anything if we just accept where we are today and we ask for support and we don't try to fix and control everything around us because we can't. And the fear of the unknown also can be an exciting journey about, I wonder what could happen next. I wonder if this could turn into something amazing instead of fearing what it might not be or what it might be or what it might not look like, just imagining what it could be. And for me, that's that child inside of me. She's now getting a chance to imagine, to believe in a dream. Whatever that dream is, she can create it. Because as children, our imagination, just like Viktor Frankl in the concentration camp, was the thing that nobody could take away from us. And they couldn't change it because it's our imagination. It's how we create things in our mind. I'm doing that every single day. I imagine what something would look like, but first I have to feel it. And if I have a joy and a passion and excitement for something, I start seeing it in color in my mind and it becomes a picture. And whether that picture turns out to be actually like that in life, I don't hold on to it because then I'm limiting it because it might be much bigger and better.
Hmm. Just one thing comes to mind is like, and it's something I say to myself now is to embrace the unknown
Mm,
and just go with it. So like, yes, I can have this goal or have this plan, and but I also know that that might not happen, and I'm okay with that. I'm just going to
mhm.
embrace whatever comes in whatever way, you know. And I think that served me well. It's something that I live with now for the last while. Just something else that you said there is about seeking help and support. A lot of the time, we find it hard to actually ask. You know, it's even just to say that word. Why is that? Is that an Irish thing or is it, you know?
No, it's worldwide. I have clients all over the world, and it doesn't matter where they're from. It's that first step is the hardest step, just making the call or sending an email or contacting it through the website. It's like, oh, I'm not sure if you can really help me, but, you know, and I always congratulate everybody when they take that first step because it is really hard. Because we have become self-reliant and self-sufficient, and people think they're things to be admired. In some cases, yes, but not when we need emotional support, not when we need to unpack things that have kept us stuck, not when we have gone through a trauma in our life or we're not sure what to do with the thoughts and those inner critic or those voices inside of us that we can't listen to anymore. They're too overwhelming. We need support to help us unpack. So when people come to me, Ryan, it's like it's going back to the root issue. We start from the very beginning. And because I work energetically, your body is already showing me where we need to start. And then you work from there, and it's step by step. It's not having to unravel everything because think about it like a big tight ball of wool, and you start pulling at one thread, you know, and when it starts, it's starting to come little by little, but it doesn't unravel all at once. So we're not just going to go in deep dive and pull everything out of you. We're going to start at where you feel strong enough to be able to cope with whatever is there for you first. So again, we're working in your present moment, but what from the past is affecting your present moment in your thoughts, your choices, your decisions, your life, self acceptance, your self worth, self esteem, all of those things. And for me, it can be a very joyful adventure. It doesn't always have to be hard. But I can understand that anybody that has not yet taken that step, that hopefully today you might say, God, maybe it wouldn't be that bad just to have a chat with somebody. You don't you don't have to say that's going to be it. I'm going to stay with that person. You have to find the right fit for you. But again, it's just saying, maybe I do need a little bit of support, and I'm going to trust myself enough to allow myself to be supported. If you think about that first step that you took, Ryan, in contacting me, what was your fear?
Um, I just suppose I had never the fear of I'd never expressed myself. So that's that expressing your thoughts first time scary, you know.
Yeah.
That's
But is it
that's what it
afraid
felt.
of being judged? Was that what you were afraid of?
When you go a layer deeper, yep, being
Yeah.
judged, being rejected, all that, yeah,
And were you any of those things when you came to me?
most definitely not.
There you go. You are, when people are talking about being rejected and being judged, they're usually talking about family, friends, close people. But when you're going to really start looking after yourself, you're going to somebody that's not emotionally attached to you. So they have no judgment on you. And they're definitely not going to reject you. What may happen is you could have come to me, we could have started working, and you could have said, you're not actually the right fit for me, Sharon. That didn't happen. But that can happen with lots of people because maybe they're just not finding the right person that's there to support them. So I would say when you can feel comfortable, because that's one of the things you said to me, Ryan. You said, I feel comfortable talking to you, Sharon. So if you feel comfortable, you're feeling safe, aren't you?
Hmm.
So there's your safety. So again, think about all of the words that I've used throughout this. And if you can feel safe with a person and you can trust them with all of your deep, dark secrets and feelings, and that they're not going to reject you or abandon you or judge you, you're starting to feel safer. And when you start to feel safer, you allow yourself to express more. And if you express yourself more, you're not carrying the weight of all of the things that are causing you the pain in the first place. There's a relief. There's a sense of somebody understands me. And that's huge for all of us, that somebody gets us, even if
Hmm.
they have had the same experience or not the same experience, the world over, we need to be feel, seen, and heard. And that's exactly what you needed at that time, Ryan. And you took that first step. So congratulations.
Thank you. And what comes with that then is this weight off your back, you start to feel lighter. And I suppose you just open up conversations with yourself,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
again, it's just listening to the younger version or even the present version of yourself. And
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely helps. And life can unfold in a way that you don't know, but also in a great way.
Mm.
Um, I feel like life now for me is unfolding in a great way. And, people come in and out of your life, and then you see who actually values you in your life for who you are, and that's refreshing as well.
Yeah. You
So,
just said something very important, Ryan. You said you see who values you. That's because you're now valuing yourself. When we say people don't respect me or they don't value my time, it's because you're not doing that for yourself. Again, you have to start with everything you look at outside of yourself. And if people are not giving you what you need, it's because you're not giving it to yourself. It always starts with us and finishes with us. I have to respect and value myself. So if you were in a job and you don't feel you're being respected or valued, well, are you allowing yourself, to do all the extra overtime, not getting paid for it, not taking holidays, because you're not standing up in your power and saying, this is what I am worth. And if I don't get it there, well, maybe I need to move elsewhere. Again, just look at it from a very common sense, practical way first. Am I being valued? Am I valuing myself? How can I value myself? And see what you can come up with. If you can't come up with things like that, maybe you'll need support around it. Just ask yourself some questions, see what your answers are, because it's a really important thing is to value who you are, even if you don't think you're in the place you need to be right now, but just value how far you actually have come. Because where you are today is exactly where you're meant to be. And after today, the choices that you make today will create your tomorrows.
Hmm. And just on the value point, then sometimes I think we go and want to spend other our time with other people that maybe are not valuing us, or
Mm,
and then you get to a place where you actually you're you're very particular about who you spend your time with, you
yeah,
know. So it does a
you're
full swing.
yeah, you value your time, so you want to give your time to the people that are valuing you. And again, it's, well, what are your values? And that's a huge question, we ask in coaching. And what are your values? And many people, they're not really sure what their values are. So is it, family, friends, self-care, fitness, nutrition, career? There's a list of things. Again, come back to what do I actually value the most? And if you can name three things that you really value the most, then you do everything to support those values. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, anyone listening, what are your top three values? Do you know? Maybe have a think about it if you're not sure. What do you want to give most of your time and energy to that's really important to you? And sometimes you may say, well, I don't value my job, but it's a means to an end right now. Okay, so where would you like to spend time in your job, or what kind of a job would you like to do? So again, you're going back to asking yourself the questions. Maybe you can't change jobs right now, but maybe you can retrain. Maybe you can look at different options in that sector. Again, where do you want to value yourself? It may not be right now, but what is the energy I can give into it now to create a change down the road that will give me more space and time to value my job or my worth in a job?
Mm. Yeah, it's it's a challenge to get to where I feel now, where I value myself. I look back and I think, Jesus, the way that I didn't value myself, the way that I abused myself, my thoughts, my eating habits, excess alcohol, drugs, and but I didn't realize that was the value that I'd been giving myself at the time.
Mm,
Um, and also, I suppose, what you consume, watching TV, listening to the radio, a lot of that too. Like, I've got to a place now where it's like I don't watch I don't watch reality TV or anything like that. There, don't watch or listen to the news. I'll just listen to my own music. I'll watch, maybe I listen to the podcast, people that I find that I can learn from, and just spend time with good people in my life, and that's it.
mm.
Keeps me grounded and balanced, and
Yeah.
yep,
And
discipline.
then even Ryan, when you're talking about the over excess of other things and, in your past, again, sometimes that's numbing the pain as well. It's pushing down what we're not able to express or we're not able to feel or let others see. So again, I would always say to people, wherever you are right now, and you've heard Ryan talk about, where he was in his life, and look at him now, you've changed your life around completely for yourself because you're loving and valuing and respecting yourself more and more. But wherever anybody is in their life right now, you may not want to be there, but that's the first recognition of, I want something to change. I don't like where I am and I don't like how I feel, but I'm not sure how to create a change. The change is recognizing that you need to change. That is the first thing. So after that, just keep saying to yourself, I want to change this. I don't like where I am. Stop focusing even on the I don't like. Just say, I'm willing to create a change. I'm not sure where that's going to be right now, but that first step is a shift in your mind. I'm willing to change, or I want something different. And that will create a change. I promise you. just even admitting that to yourself. And again, stop judging yourself and stop being so hard on yourself, because when we're punishing ourselves, we decide to give it more shite, isn't it? We decide, oh, sure, it's not going to change. I might as well have the other bottle of whiskey.
And actually, that's another thing I hear sometimes is just like, I don't think I can help myself or anyone can help me. Is that just a story we tell ourselves, or?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's again a fear of change. So we use the excuse that nobody can understand us or nobody can help us. There is so many people trained all over the world that can help nearly everybody, you know. And and again, it mightn't be to make it better, but it can help to support you in whatever you're going through. So stop trying to think about being fixed or being, whatever. Just think about needing support. How can I help someone support me? Who can I find to support me, to figure this out? Because sometimes it's just trying to figure it out, Ryan, isn't it? It's like, I've no clue what I'm actually feeling or thinking. I just know I don't feel good in myself, but I don't know what that means. But I don't know how else to feel because I've always felt like this. But you just know if it doesn't feel good for you now, there has to be something better for you. Even if you're not sure what that feels like, and even if you're afraid of it, I wonder what feeling a little bit better would feel like for you. I wonder what waking up in the morning and actually looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, God, you're actually amazing. Or talking to yourself in your head and going, God, you really did great today. After everything you've come through, you're really doing brilliant. Or actually standing up in front of friends and family and saying, thank you, for noticing me and the changes I've made. Or you didn't fucking notice, whatever it is. And even if they didn't, it doesn't matter. You've noticed it. You have to be that power in your own life. You have to be the best friend. You have to be the cheerleader. You have to be the parent that maybe you didn't have when you were small. You have to be the partner that you want in your life that loves you and adores you. You have to be the boss that thinks you're the best thing since sliced bread. You have to be all of those things for yourself. And then you have to take little steps to creating how that's going to look in your life. But again, if you don't know what it looks like, don't worry. I didn't either. I had no idea where my life was going to be. I had no idea that I would be one day sitting on a podcast across from Ryan McDaid or even, doing the work that I'm doing. And I still smile when people say, I've read your book, or I listened to your podcast, or I went to your talk, or I did your retreat, and I'm going, did you? Thank you so much. I'm still surprised. I'm still surprised because it's the little girl in me that goes, oh my God, I did it. I got out of the prison. And I celebrate her every single day when somebody congratulates me on something because she had the hardest part to play, not me. So she is the most amazing person I've ever known in my life.
Sharon, it's been amazing having this conversation with you. I would like to have more conversations with you about specific topics over time. I think there's
Mm,
so much we could delve into in every aspect, and relationships, abundance, and how we can bring whatever it is we want into our life, the right partner, everything. There's so much, and I feel like this is just the start. One of many conversations.
Ryan, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure, and thank you for asking me and the opportunity to share a little bit about my story, and again for having trust in me, with your life, because I always say it's a sacred space. And again, the courage to share openly with somebody, when you're looking for that support, it's amazing. So well done to you. And
Thank
thank
you,
you.
thank you. It's been amazing. Thank you so much for being coming on and being yourself and sharing what you've been through.
I can't help
Inspiring.
you any other way, Ryan.
Yeah. Inspiring, Sharon.
Thank you, Ryan.